So without any further ado, I ask Lee and Stone from Business Radio X.
Thank you. Well, I didn't realize all those people were listening. I'm going to be a nervous wreck the next time I'm in a studio. I've been content for like 12 years now with just the people on the other side of the table listening. So that's really interesting. I did not come empty-handed. I do have a few ideas to share with you. I did bring a subject matter expert with me. I came across this guy 12 plus years ago. He was doing some great work. I jumped on his coattails. I'm not letting go. I am going to ask you to kind of be our scribe on a couple of things, so you don't have to stand up here unless you just want to. We typically have a little bit of a Penn and Teller routine. I like to visit with people. He's a little more introverted. I'm going to actually ask you in a little while to speak to how and why an introvert really can fully capitalize on this platform, but you really can sit back down for just a minute if you want. I brought this up here. This is all we do. We eat, sleep, Business Radio X, broadcasting, digital radio, and trying to help people use this platform to help more people and make more money. So I'm always looking at the latest, greatest toys and all that. And I thought, hey, let's just make what we're doing today a podcast. So we're podcasting right now, just so you know. So that's what this is up here about. I kept 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names were what, why, when, where, how, and who. How many of you heard that quote before? Anybody else heard that quote before? I think they teach it in journalism school. I don't know. I went to Pensacola Junior College. I played table tennis. I barely got through with a marketing degree. I came to learn later on the quote is actually from a gentleman by the name of Rudyard Kipling. I first heard it some 30 years ago from a mentor of mine named Steve Brown. Steve Brown is a multimillionaire. I answered an ad in a paper 30 years ago to go sell sales training, leadership development training. I walked into the 19th floor of the King building over there at Concourse, and I had a conversation with this guy. I accidentally asked him a question that was one of the questions that he taught in his sales training, and he really took to me, and you could just tell we had such a great bond. And I was a little arrogant at that time in my life. I hadn't been knocked down so much at that point. And I just told him, I said, look, Mr. Brown, I've had some success in selling. I know how to make money. I want you to teach me how to be rich. And so he turned around and he walked over to his bookshelf. He had written the book, 13 Fatal Errors That Managers Make and How to Avoid Them. I thought he was going to go grab a copy of his book and tell me to read that. He went over there to his bookshelf and he pulled out a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. If you've not seen this book, get a hold of it. If you have any desire at all to build and protect your wealth, read that book, read it every year. He shared that book with me and he shared that quote with me. Fast forward 30 years, I will tell you, I really believe, I've come to believe the most important word in that quote is the word serving. And I share that with you because I'm going to use the word serve to describe for you what I saw Lee already doing and what we sort of formalized to help us go out and meet our market. Because we genuinely do believe that service is at the heart of this thing. If you want to be successful in any arena, that it ought to be from a heart of service, and particularly in the business arena, and we've certainly found it to be true in terms of leveraging this platform to genuinely help people and make money. We believe with all our heart, and I know Lee does, and it's why I resonate so well with everything that he says and does, that serve early, serve often, serve first. If you don't know what to do next, serve. If you're running out of ideas, serve. If you're on your last leg, serve. If you are trying to make it, serve. If you've already made it, I don't have to tell you, you'll know because that's how you got there, but serve. Serve your profession, and you won't ever want for talent. You'll always have access to the best talent. Serve your community, you're going to have long-lasting impact. Serve your competition, you won't have any. So we're going to use that word serve to kind of walk through some of the key aspects of what we think we've learned over the years. And we've been at it a while. When I started this, I had dark black hair. So we got a little bit of scar tissue. So the most important word in that quote, I've come to believe, is serving. The two most important questions in that quote, we believe, are who and why. And the reason I share that with you right now is I'm going to ask you to engage in a brief exercise with me, if you will. In just a moment, I'm going to ask you to break off into pairs, 2 at a time, and I'd like each of you to serve as the other's podcasting consultant for a moment. I'd like you to conduct a brief interview with them, just get some information, find out who your client is trying to serve with their podcast. If they've got a podcast, who are they serving now? If they're thinking about it, who exactly do they want to serve with that podcast? And Paul, you were right on target for whatever my opinion is worth with the why. Who do they want to serve and why? And so I'd like you to collect that information. Then after you've done it, we'll give you a few minutes to do that. First one, then the other. And then we're going to go around when we come back, and I'm going to ask you to introduce your client and share with us what you learned from them about who they're trying to serve and why. And we're going to use it also as a little bit of a practice opportunity for one of the many hosting mechanics that we try to share with our new host. And that is, when you're doing an introduction of someone, our counsel is not to go in this long diatribe. Let them introduce themselves on the air. They'll have more fun with it, and it'll get them kind of warmed up. But also, one little hosting mechanic, one little piece of counsel for you is when you're introducing them, say their name last. So, for example, if I were going to share with you, I had the great fortune of spending a few minutes with this gentleman. He's with the SBDC. He's a consultant, and I've gotten to know him very well. He's also the host of a podcast or a radio show called Small Business Fuel. Please put your hands and join me in welcoming to the program Mr. Paul Wilson. But that mechanic of building it up and then mentioning their name at the end, I'd like to give you a chance to practice that. So in just a moment, I'm going to have you pair up. I'm going to have you get that information, the who and the why. Then when we get back together, I'm going to ask you to introduce them in kind of in that format and land on their name. Any questions about what I'd like you to do? All right, if not, if you would, just kind of pair off. The two of you work together, and the two of you grab your partner. Grab your partner. If we get an oddball, they can partner with Paul or me.
And what's your question? I've been practicing all 12 seasons, and I've been in private practice only my
One of those 90 million listeners we were talking about.
I think I would probably touch on a lot of different, those especially other I have a very background, and I wouldn't focus just on I would probably try to touch on
So what made you do that?
Well, one reason is basically it's like helping them. I really know the younger people around me, and I find that they're really tuned in YouTube channels, they really don't care what they prefer.
If I can have your attention for just a second, by now hopefully you're kind of wrapping up, or maybe you've already finished finding that out from one. So if not, get that wrapped up and let's find out from the other person.
And So I think that's good. So, okay. So I guess it's a meeting. So I'm
Three lenders plus
and so, It turns out to be a lot of safety. And, our state farm, we have the same state farm.
All right, if I can have your attention, please take about one more minute and wrap up your consulting session.
for 5 years.
All right, if I can have your attention, please. Thank you very much for engaging in that exercise. What I asked you to do was pair off and visit with the other person, get a little information from them. Who are they trying to serve and why? And then in presenting that information back to the group, I thought it'd be a good opportunity also to practice sharing that information and landing on their name. So that's what we're going to do right now. Brian and Koya, is that, I get that right? All right, have agreed to be our first pair. If you would, one and then the other, if you both stand up and then one, then the other introduce each other and share with us those things, who, why, and introduce the person.
Okay, so today I have this unique, interesting individual who has been performing podcasts for over a year. They cater to MLB, which stands for Mom's Life Balance. And the purpose of MLB is to give women the playbook to create a life balance, and why they have, this individual has developed MLB is for women that struggle with creating balance and making time for themselves. And what they offer is family life, business tips on how to be balanced and live a balanced lifestyle. So let me introduce you to Koya.
All right, let's give Koya some appreciation. Very nice. Wow. Man, that's going to be a hard act to follow, Koya. I'm sorry. Man, mic drop. All right, who'd you bring with you, Koya?
Hey, wow. All right, so I had the pleasure of finding out that, I don't even know how to put the name last. Okay, I had the pleasure of working with, I had the pleasure of meeting my partner who is here for the first time and does not know exactly where he wants to go with the podcast or where he wants to start, who he wants to cater to, but he is here, which is really cool because I've been in business a year and I'm here and I feel like he's going to have a way better head start than I did. So, let me introduce you to Brian, who's here for the first time.
All right, let's give him some appreciation. Very nicely done. So in just a moment, I'm going to ask our next pair to stand up. As you're listening to them and you hear what they have to say, it might inform the balance of our conversation. But also, if you would, commit to paper at some point during this exercise your single most burning question about this whole topic, about podcasting. It could be about equipment, about how to sell it, about the mechanics, but just let's collect a handful of these most burning questions. Who's my next pair? Yeah, come on, stand up, you two. Thank you. All right, let's give you a little appreciation. Right up there. All right.
Good morning. This morning I have the wonderful pleasure of introducing you all to a woman who has an amazing passion for individuals who are transitioning out of corporate America into entrepreneurship. She's experienced through her own organization many individuals who are eager to transition, except they may not take the proper steps, leading them to a brick wall, perhaps wanting to give up. And so today I am excited that we have someone who's willing to share their experience and expertise with you all. She is the CEO of Executive Prep. Please join me in welcoming Mrs. Deetra Giles.
All right. Nicely done. No wonder all those people are listening to us. I know. It's
All right. So, listeners, I would like for you to pause for a second and think about what it feels like or what your life would be like if you healed emotionally, loved earnestly, and lived freely. Well, my guest today can help you with all of that. She is the head of a nonprofit called Earnest Love, where they help women heal from emotional wounds. She's worked with people at the Buford Human Services, and she helps people tell their personal stories by telling her own story to help them live that life we talked about, where they heal emotionally, love earnestly, and live freely. Join me in welcoming Shante Benson.
Wow. Man. We're going to bottle this podcast and sell it, guys. Everybody profits. You hearing this stuff? Who's my next consulting pair? All right, come on. Uh-oh, got them fighting over now.
Oh, my God. Well,
We need some more practice.
we have in our audience today a Georgia educator who's a certified certified behavior analyst, who's also certified as a special education and English teacher. She works closely with children, families, and school systems throughout the United States that are affected by autism and other spectrum disorders, social and emotional behaviors. Please join me in welcoming Stephanie Williams to our audience.
All right, welcome to Stephanie.
And today I have the pleasure of speaking with a federal contractor with the Department of Labor, Employment, and Training Administration, whose area of expertise lies in his passion, which is the education and training of youth. He currently provides contract services in the states of Michigan and in Arizona. Please allow me to introduce Benji Williams.
All right, very nice. Good stuff.
Okay. All right, everyone. Today I have the pleasure of meeting a wonderful woman who's a lawyer, has 17 years of experience, and has been in private practice for the last 11 years, practicing personal injury and family law. She also has experience in criminal law, and she's been a judge, and she's going to come and tell you all the general things that you need to keep you out of trouble. The general public is not aware of a lot of law issues that come up, and Ms. Trisselle Simmons will get us there and get us out of trouble.
All right.
Well, boy, do I have a treat for you. We've all heard throughout probably our whole lives how hard doctors and physicians work. So to have someone with us today who's taking time out their busy and I'm sure hectic schedule to just inform us about some general health issues, especially those that affect minority communities, issues concerning diabetes, heart disease, and all those types of things that we hear about, but we don't know so much about. We have a hospitalist here who has been working in the hospital as a hospitalist for over 5 years. So as a hospitalist, you know that means they've seen it all. And to be a hospitalist, what you're doing is you're only seeing patients who have been admitted in the hospital. So you're actually, I believe, an employee of the hospital, and you are there taking care of those who have been admitted. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to the phenomenal Dr. Denise Johnson, who is here to help us understand issues that we face sometimes and to not be afraid to go and get help.
All right. Very nicely done. We're getting high cotton here. We got doctors, judges. Man.
Good evening. I'm here with fellow entrepreneur who's passionate about providing a space for small business startups, entrepreneurs, allowing them to do more and achieve more by providing an open space, free with stock, and allowing entrepreneurs to come in and develop and grow their small business. Allow me to present to you my fellow introvert, Ellen.
Good morning, everyone. If you started out this morning thinking about what you were going to have for dinner this evening or how you were going to prep for your family, today we have a very special guest. We have a chef, a mother of 4, who is ready to talk about healthy meals for families and how to get them ready within a busy, busy day. Please join me in welcoming Bawanda Richardson to our show today.
All right.
Hi, how many of you have seen in the headlines that whether you're a company or individual or a federal agency, there's data hacks? And we're all concerned about how we protect our data. I am so pleased to be here today with one of my guests, and she is very passionate about protecting your data. And her markets are federal, commercial, and also private individuals. Please join me in welcoming Letitia Alexander.
All right.
Good morning. I wanted to introduce a very passionate individual who has a passion to take small business, minority business to the next level. She has a passion to help small businesses get contracts at the federal level with federal, commercial, and local, local industries. Also, she want to make sure that she target minority businesses and they have an opportunity to give back to their community and to provide jobs and economic development. And I wanted to introduce Ridley Richardson. Ridley, sorry.
All right. Wow. That was fantastic. I'm going to set that up as like a model of see what we can do in a day and a half for $1,500. We can teach you how to do this. But these guys did it on their own. That's fantastic. So we still got other comments. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, to piggyback off of this federal funding company here, I have had the pleasure speaking with a young lady who is the spokesperson for the GMSDC, which is the Georgia Minority Supplier Development Council. And they are responsible for helping minority business owners, attain their V certification to work with corporations and government entities with supply chain needs. Ladies and gentlemen, Emily Yang.
All right.
I actually have to jump on a conference call at 10, so I'm gonna, I have the pleasure of introducing today an individual who is very creative and why we'll be talking about today about why creativity is so important in today's business industry. He has about 10 years of experience in fashion and apparel and lifestyle, and we'll be sharing fashion tips and lifestyle tips. And please join me in welcoming Drea Boone.
All right. Nicely done. Thank you. So as you were being introduced, as your partner was introducing you, talking about the who and the why, and introduced, how did that feel?
Great.
It feel good? Yeah. The reason I ask, at least in the way we approach it, in our view, the guest experience is absolutely paramount. For us, that is the foundation for everything. It may or may not be, depending on how you choose to take your podcast to market and exactly how and why you choose to serve a certain group. But I will share with you, for us, in the Business Radio X model anyway, the guest experience is paramount. It comes before everything, before the listener, before anything. And we can talk about that a little bit more. Now, as the person doing the introducing, how did that feel? Okay, a little awkward? Was it a little awkward for somebody? Well, no, for some of you it was kind of a new approach. I think you'll find that this is not the only arena in which that strategy, that approach will serve you well. Maybe the next time you're in a situation where you're introducing a speaker for a workshop or something like that, I think you'll find that some of the people that are a little more polished and do it more often will use that technique or something very much like it. We find that it's one of those little hosting mechanics kind of things that can make a big difference. Again, in our world, our clients are hosts, so they're not professional radio people, right? Their day job is they are a CPA, or they do government contracting, or they're a judge, or they're a lawyer, or whatever. And so one of the things we do in our model is we teach them some fundamental hosting mechanics. And we're happy to share as much of that with you today and beyond as we can as well. So that's something to think about. The other thing I asked you to do is, while we were engaged in that exercise, to think through that one most burning question on your mind. And the thinking behind that is, between me and Lee, the people at this table, and the marvelous resources in the back of the room, we probably won't be able to do a deep dive on any of them, but we can probably give you a little bit of our take and at least get the conversation going, and we can certainly continue the conversation, and we're going to make sure that there's a vehicle to do that. And selfishly, guys, I would like to know what's on people's minds anyway. I would like to conduct some of that real-time research that you guys are so good at capturing. Now, parallel to all of that, we're going to utilize that idea of serving. We're actually going to utilize the word serve to share with you kind of our roadmap at Business Radio X about how we approach this whole business of broadcasting and podcasting, how we approach this whole idea of helping other people help other people and make money with this platform. We're going to use the word serve. We're going to use it as an acrostic, partially to help me remember what to say. But we're going to, for each of those letters, SERVE, that is a stage in our process for serving people. We're going to use that as a little bit of a guideline. We're probably not going to be able to dive into all of it, but I wanted definitely to talk a little bit about that very first letter, the S. In our world, that stands for select. We're very big on choosing yourself. We're very big on deciding who you want to serve and why. And then some of these other questions, look, I'm kind of a one-trick pony, so I am probably going to share from my perspective within that framework. I'm going to share with you how to serve from the standpoint of our sales process, because I'm the sales guy. Lee may have a little different take on it. Other people in the room might have a little different take on it. So we're going to use that serve framework, if you will. But let's go ahead and get a few of these burning questions out on the table, and we'll attack them a little bit. Just anybody. What was one that came up in your group?
How to effectively market and promote your podcast.
Okay, how to effectively market and promote your podcast. First, just some quick ideas from around the table. If we had all been engaged to help this person promote the podcast, what might we say or do or ask to help them get this thing off the ground? And I know some of you have very specific marketing expertise, so what would you do to get a podcast marketed and promoted? Yeah.
So one of the things, and this may play into what Business Radio X is, based, I think, on my conversations with John, but the getting to a distribution platform, getting to a platform where you are among other podcasts that people are going and looking for podcasts, not necessarily standing alone in a field waiting for people to show up. So that was one of the reasons why I was looking at trying to even team up with Business Radio X and tying my studio in with some model where people can get a accelerated jump on getting heard.
Gotcha. I agree. And so if you don't already know about this, one of those big things that he's describing, a great platform you're going to want to get your podcast on in relatively short order is iTunes. Everybody pretty familiar with that? There's a whole process for that. It's not even as hard as it used to be. If you run into any trouble at all, you know what, let's do this right now because we're not going to get into all this. Stone, S-T-O-N-E, at businessradiox.com. And I'll probably have some cards in there, but Stone at businessradiox.com. You get out there a week from now, 6 months from now, you're trying to get something on iTunes or try to do any of this other stuff, and you think, this clown told me 2 weeks ago how easy this was. I'm in here trying to do it. You just send me an email and I'll try to help you. But as long as we're talking about platforms, iTunes is the biggie, right? And then a lot of these podcatchers will scrape iTunes. And they'll scrape it and then they'll put it on their thing. One other resource to write down, Spreaker, not speaker, Spreaker, SPREAKER.com. What I like about Spreaker, there's a lot I like about Spreaker. One of the things I like about it is once you kind of get in their system with very little effort, it'll put you on iTunes, it'll put you on CastBox, it'll put you on Spotify. It's you can pull one lever and it'll put you on a bunch of stuff. So Spreaker.com is something to think about. And we've had quite a bit of experience. I'm using their podcast app right now because we're doing this as a podcast. So, yes, great idea. Other ideas for promoting and marketing the podcast?
Be a guest on someone else's.
I like it. Be a guest on someone else's, right? So get out there. Write the podcast guest, plural, podcastguests.com. See if you can get yourself on that. And then, because people like us will go to podcastguests.com if we're in search of guests. We've been at it a while, so we get a lot of incoming. But that's a place to go. And so podcasts will go there to look. Also, Haro, H-A-R-O.
Oh, help a reporter out.
Help a reporter, yeah. Haro.com, helpareporterout.com. And what's nice about this, do both sides, right? You can get into this thing and you can be they probably call it a journalist, they might not call it, but you can sign up on both sides of that thing. So you can also go out and find guests on that thing, but you can also be a guest. Excellent. Somebody else, ways to promote, market a podcast.
Your Facebook page or something?
Facebook, not my Facebook page, but maybe yours. My Facebook page is littered with grandbabies and ribs.
Your business.
Right, there you go. No, right, just the whole social media thing. It's a great way to do stuff. Again, I know I'm kind of I get distracted by shiny things kind of easy. So right now I'm on this Spreaker thing. But I'm using the Spreaker app to do some of our stuff in studio. And one of the neat things about it, in addition to everything else I just described, you can hit a share button and right out of the box. Last night we were broadcasting live from the Women in Technology Women of the Year Awards. And I just hit a little share button and I could let my business Facebook world know that we were broadcasting live. Click one button, typed in one thing. So that's really cool. So Facebook, social media, I'm not that up to speed on it, but there's the Instagram, there's the Twitter, right? Yeah. All of those things. Yeah. Lee, what's your go-to? What do you think are some of the best ways to promote and market a radio show or a podcast?
For business people, I think a great distribution source is the trade associations or the groups that serve that same audience that you're looking for. So if you can partner with them and have them distribute the podcast, that's a great way to get it out to the people that matter most to you.
And using social media, I think it's called promorepublic.com.
I don't know that one. Yeah. Promorepublic.com. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it's kind of similar to Hootsuite. You post it one place and it sends it out to everyone.
I like stuff like that, right? You push one button and it goes out. All right. So again, all these topics to be continued, and I mean, I could build a case for us to kind of have our own little mastermind, our own little crew, right? And we'll try to help each other. Stone at businessradiox.com. Maybe there's some mechanism, Paul, to keep the whole crew kind of talking to each other. But let's go on. What was another burning question?
How often do you need to broadcast your podcast? Is this a
So,
full-time
yeah, like,
job?
is this a daily thing? Is this, we can do
Yeah,
that
take the robe
anytime.
off, Judge. You're done with that now. You're done. I'm going to go straight to my subject matter expert. I've got a couple of thoughts on it, but the first thing I would do is ask Lee. Look, the answer to all these questions is ask Lee. That's it. That's the answer to every question you got, but we'll ask him. How often, man?
You should have a regular rhythm, whatever it is. It doesn't matter really when you start. I mean, people start as little as monthly. Weekly is better than monthly. You can make a case for daily, but it's. I would start. That's the most important thing. But the rhythm, and just keep it consistent. If they know that it drops on Friday at 7, drop every Friday at 7.
Okay.
It can't be like, oh, today I'm going to do Tuesday, and next week it'll be Wednesday. Like have a certain predictable time, because people do. You want it to be in a position where people miss you if you're not there.
Right.
And in order to do that, you have to have some predictable rhythm. But I would start. I mean, weekly is a good time amount, or even monthly if you want to just get started. We use monthly shows for our clients all the time. I prefer weekly, but we do daily tips that we drop every day at 7 in the morning.
That's another way to use podcasts. That has proven our studio partners. We have 10 studios now. They really appreciate that we're dropping these tips that address a lot of this stuff, right? Just a little 2-3 minute ditty. He and I'll chat, and we'll print it, right?
And that's something else, another resource for you here. If you go to our website, and probably just go to BRX.
Yeah, I think we've gotten a big menu of BRX Pro Tips.
Right, and then we have a lot of little 2-minute little chunks where we answer a lot of these questions.
So you know why we don't have our website up here behind me, like the whole time we're talking and showing you examples? We just went to a dedicated server, and like they told us, look, this is going to take 2.5 hours. We'll start it. So I was a little too nervous to fill it up here. It might be fine now, I don't know, but it will be by tomorrow, I'm sure. But yeah, go and check out that BRX Pro Tips. There's a lot of this kind of stuff. All right, another burning question. Yes, sir.
Well, I wanted to play off of that because it's my perception, and I'd love your confirmation on this, that unless you're dealing with like live politics, live sports, live, things that are very, very sort of in that moment, in that week, you don't have to record every week. You could record once a month and then drop once a week. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, like he and I, we did yesterday, we recorded 10 pro tips that aren't going to drop until the end of December. So if it's evergreen content, that's one thing. If you're interviewing guests, I wouldn't recommend you do that, because the guest now is waiting for a month until their interview appears, and they're not going to appreciate that because they sat down with you today, and you go, guess what? It's not going to drop for 4 weeks or 6 weeks. How would you feel if you were that person?
I truly understand that. The other side of that, or what I perceive to be the other side of that, is you end up with your guest for this week canceled, and now you're in a panic rush to fill that slot, wouldn't you?
If you do one guest at a time, that is a risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it becomes kind of a balancing act, kind of.
Right, so that's why our model is different than a traditional podcaster model, or the typical podcaster. So we have multiple guests, and we don't have that issue come up.
Got it.
But it's a good point. And it's a good point about the evergreen, like we do with the pro tips.
Right.
You can drop them. Also, there's also something different about the dynamic that's created, at least in the room. I know a lot of podcasting is over the phone, and we ought to talk about the pros and cons of doing that versus putting somebody in a room, or even sitting down with a little bit of a rig right in their office. It's a different dynamic when you go live, right, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely.
It creates a different vibe, a different energy. I won't say good, bad, or other, but it is a different level of energy. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're newbie and just getting started, what type of equipment do you need?
So largely depends on how you're going to get started, what you're going to get started with. In my opinion, and I'm a little bit biased, and in my opinion, I've been podcasting for 30 years. Now, if you want to do the math, most of the technology we've been talking about wasn't available 30 years ago. But gang, I've been on recorded conference calls for 30 plus years. You can record a conference call, put an intro and an outro on it, post it on everything we talked about, and you just distributed a podcast. So to me, it's as simple as doing freeconferencecall.com, pressing *9, having a good conversation with somebody that's important to you in your ecosystem, and in 10 minutes you can have it out to the world. So to me, there's a lot of this. I'm not overly enamored with all this fancy experts telling you about all this equipment you got to buy and all this stuff. Now, there are some pieces of equipment that, like I have a little home studio rig at my place, at my house. We have a physical, we have 10, but he and I operate out of one physical studio in Sandy Springs, and we have some definite opinions about that equipment. So maybe we ought to dive into a little bit about, because we've learned some things, and you learned some things before I found you. You've got some scar tissue on equipment, so maybe it wouldn't hurt to hit on a little bit of the equipment stuff.
Right, but the equipment, it varies depending on what your objective is. I mean, if you're going to do this out of your house, in that kind of environment, it's all going to be over the phone, you need certain kind of equipment. In our world, we have a physical studio, so we broadcast, like last night we were at the Georgia Aquarium doing podcasts. So we have certain equipment that can do that. In our studio, we have certain equipment that can do that. So it really depends on where you're going to be doing this and how you're going to be facilitating it.
Yeah, like from your office.
Right, so like in your office, over the phone or in person?
Yeah. Well, over the phone or internet. That's what I'm asking.
Okay, so in your office, and this is a moving target.
Yeah.
Right now, today, if you said, Stone, give me your best opinion, I want to do a really good, high-quality podcast from my office on the phone. I'm going to interview 1, 2, or 3 people at a time. I just want it to be really good, right? I would use a conference call service. The one I'm particularly enamored with at the moment is called Uber, uberconference.com. It's free, it's HD audio, and it's almost always great. Right up until it's not. And then sometimes, technology is technology. But right now, we don't do many, but we do some call-in stuff at my studio. When we do, you have a call-in number. Now, in our case, we don't ever have anybody local call in. But like if they're across the country or out of the country, they call in so that they can call into it, or they can get on their computer and join it by computer, and then they can join they can have a USB microphone, or they can have the ear thingies in the microphone. Our experience, based on what I think I've learned from most of our colleagues, we get better quality more consistently than like the Skype and the Zoom and all that. But people use those things as well. But what I would say, if you ask me, I would say, get you a good conference call service. My pick of the litter today is Uber Conference. I think it's $36, $40, something like that. Audio-Technica USB microphone. Go look it up on Amazon. Again, any of this stuff, shoot me a note Sunday and say, man, I can't find that microphone you're talking about. I'll help you. I like having that. I like having a little set of headphones, where I can hear. And I like it where that other person on the other side can join by computer or by phone. And then, does anybody want to hear about a physical studio setup, or is that too much sugar for a dime right now? All right, pick of the litter for me would be 4 decent quality headphones. And when I say decent quality, I'm talking about $30 a pop. Tascam makes a good product. They got a couple different in that range. I like having the mic stands that have a little bit of weight on the bottom, and then you can put the microphone in them. I highly recommend you do not go out and buy that expensive $500 microphone. If you are working down at NPR and you got an absolutely soundproof booth, maybe, right? But that's not what we do. We do the dynamic mics.
The more expensive microphones that like a singer would use, or somebody that's recording sound for a CD, for music or something like that, they want something that'll only capture that person's voice, so that those are expensive. But in most environments that podcasters are in, like a conference room, an office, things like that, you want those expensive mics are called condenser mics. So they pick up all the sound. That's their job. They want to pick up as much sound as possible, because the singer's singing, they want to get their whole voice. In podcasting, you're mostly talking, so you don't need to get every bit of their vocal range in order to do this. The listener doesn't care that much about that. Now, if you hear in this room, if we're quiet for a second, you hear that sound, right? Mm-hmm. If you had a condenser mic,
oh my God,
sound like an airplane.
It sounds like a hurricane.
Because that's going to pick up. That's when we're silent. That's the loudest noise in the room. So if you're in your office and somebody cuts on the air, or somebody walks by, all that is part of the sound. It's not perfectly soundproof. So in our world, we use dynamic mics that are more for the singer on stage. So that singer on stage, they don't hear, when they're singing, you don't hear the audience as much. You only hear their voice. So that works better in this kind of an environment, in a real life environment, not a soundproof environment.
And you can get those for $50. The ones we have are $99. They're E835s or E385 Sennheiser. I would get 4 of those. You get 3 of them in a pack, I think, on Amazon, and it comes with some cords. So the dynamic microphones, the nice little mic stand, and then a mic cord, 4 of them. But this is relatively new for us. Today, my recommendation would be for the mixer. If you have a mixer in a physical studio, I would get the Rodecaster Pro, RODECASTER Pro. If it's out of your price range, and I've got some other options for you, that thing's what, $499, $599? It's $500 or $600. But what I love about it is all the microphone things go into it, all the headphone things go into it. It has an SD card where you can record straight to a little micro SD card. If you do the latest firmware, you can tell that to talk to your computer. It's got a thing on the side. It's play school version of a mixer, which again, I'm not an audio guy, guys. I'm a sales and marketing guy. None of my studio partners are audio people. We're sales and marketing people. So it's got a little thing. It's like a play school button. Once you get it all set, you hit the button and it plays your intro. You hit the other button and it plays your outro. So my pick of the litter.
It has a hole for your phone. You can plug a phone
Oh
in.
yeah, that's it. You can do the phone stuff off of it too, Bluetooth or directly plugged in.
So
Then you can forget about that Uber thing that I told you about if you do that.
You can call directly into the phone right into.
If you're only doing one at a time, it might be tougher. But so anyway, that's our pick of the litter at the moment. And we even put it. Did we do a video with like you getting it out of the box thing? Me and John Ray did it. We set up John Ray with that. So we did like a get it out of the box, set it up kind of thing. What am I forgetting? Headphones, microphone wires. The whole enchilada. It's like golf or fishing, guys. You can spend as much as you want to on it. But what do you think? $2,000 in and out. You'd have the Business Radio X Studio kit.
If you want to do it over the phone in your
office,
you can do it for $50.
We can do everything from freecommercecall.com. What was the other one I was going?
If you're going to have a studio and invite people in, I would invest in mic flags.
Yeah. Mic flags, yeah.
So say
mic flags.
What's that? In the kitchen.
The little thing that has the name of your.
In the kitchen setting.
What equipment would be needed for that?
That's an interest. I don't know. Let's talk that over a little bit. Let's help you want it to podcast from a kitchen.
Right.
Now is that going to have a visual element into it as well, like video?
Visually.
Oh my God! See, I don't know. I am so unqualified to talk about video.
I'll just email you later.
I don't know.
Are you going to be recording your cooking while you're cooking?
Yes.
So while you're cooking, you're going to do an audio recording of that?
Right. So the conversation, dish.
Is it just you by yourself, or you're going to have other people?
Maybe my children or my homegirl come over, things of that nature.
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
Well, I mean,
Might be wireless mic.
you see how old we are. We don't know how to do video, but
She wants to do audio.
right. So I don't know, but I honestly don't know. I don't, but we ought to try to find out because I'm surely it can be done. Okay, equipment. I want to make sure. What other am I not thinking about for equipment? Let's go back to less expensive get-in. Seriously, guys, if you're just dancing around this thing, and you're not so sure, I'm telling you, get on a conference call and record it and publish the darn thing. That is a podcast. And get you somebody, come by the studio someday, and we'll take a picture of you in front of our microphone, and you put that on your LinkedIn. Don't go spend all this money. So there's a lot of window dressing in this. I don't believe it. A less expensive version of this thing, that same company, Tascam, makes something called a Mini Studio 32/42. That Mini Studio, Tascam, Tascam, Mini Studio, MINISTUDIO, and they have it 32/42. It might be US 3242 or 3242 US. They have a 1-holer version and a 2-holer. So if I was on a limited budget, I might go ahead and make the investment in a couple of $99 microphones. I'd probably buy my 2-holer and that comes with some software you can put on your computer, so that you don't have to have the mixer, right? It takes the real stuff. They're called XLR. Put them in. You got a microphone. I got a microphone. I'm hooked up to my computer. It's very professional, and I can record it on my computer. That's what we didn't talk about. You got to get it recorded, right?
Yeah.
All right. So that Spreaker, I need to get a commission from Spreaker. The Spreaker app makes all that super duper easy. I am a big believer, and so is he, in redundancy, right? So that's great. Thank you very much, Spreaker, for letting us broadcast live, for letting us record. Also, I want some sort of backup. If I've got the Rodecaster, I'm not worried about it, because it's recording something right there at the mixer. But if I'm on this Tascam doohickey thingy bobber, then I want a little piece of software on my computer that I can record with. Does anybody already have that on their computer? Something they know just records on their computer? Look, it may come with that. I don't know. The one that I've got is, on my computer in my home rig, I've got that Tascam thing. I've got to use the Uber conference call thing. I've got the Tascam thing. I have a backup recorder on my computer. I've downloaded some open source software. It has a very unfortunate name, BUTT, B-U-T-T. It's broadcast using this tool. But if you go, the safe place to download it is a place called SourceForge.net, SourceForge.net. Go to SourceForge.net, type in B-U-T-T, or all the words, broadcast using this tool, and download this little app, this little piece of software. I only use it for recording anymore. But in the old days, if you want to get into the broadcasting side of things, it also lends itself to that. You got to go do another thing. You got to go buy a channel and all that, and I can tell you how to do all that. I don't have to do it anymore because of Spreaker. But if you did that, it's built where you can say, okay, this is my channel. So don't only record this, Mr. Computer, send it out over my channel too. So broadcast using this tool. So that's everything you need for that rig, right?
Yeah, but you can see the equipment. Once you get in the equipment, it's very personal and everybody's situation.
Go down a rabbit hole.
So this is something that really has to be customized to your unique situation, because everybody in this room is doing it a little differently with different objectives. So it's hard to answer that for everybody.
And is there a podcast, or I guess you say some type of device that you can use? Take for instance, sometimes when I'm out hiking and stuff like that, I may want to record, doing that. Is that something that you can use with your phone to record?
Look, I'm calling Spreaker this afternoon, and I'm getting on the payroll. That is exactly what we're doing right now.
So that's the mobile way you can record and use a Spreaker.
Absolutely. And I've got the Jim Jimmy version of this. I'm not using it. If I wanted to, we could be actually broadcasting live, and somebody could actually be listening to all this live. I'm not doing that. I'm just recording it. But there's probably other ways, but you can absolutely do it with this thing. Yes, correct. Yeah.
Does Spreaker allow you to edit on the software, or you have to edit it separately?
I think you have to edit it separately, but I could be wrong about that, because our approach to editing, which we ought to talk about, I'm glad you brought it up. I don't know is the answer to the question. Here's how we attack editing. Again, seriously, I had black hair when we started this thing. We used to pay people that were smart audio people, right? We do the raw thing, and then we'd send it to these people, and we paid as much as $40 a file at one time, didn't we? Kind of settled into $15, $20 a file, which again, the way we're set up, we make really nice margins because our whole approach to marketing what we do is very different than much of what you might have been exposed to, and we're happy to share that with you if you want sometime today. But we would pay a separate person to go and do that. Now, in the very early days, you did it all on your own with some open source software, editing software. So we ought to learn.
Audacity is a common editing for podcasting software. Audacity.
Now, I think you can go to audacity.com. You might get it at SourceForge too.
Right. And again, it's whatever your objective is. If you're trying to make like an NPR style podcast that has a lot of layers of sound and sound effects and things like that, that requires more professional help. Either you're doing it yourself, and that takes a lot of time. In our model, we're doing interviews, so we're kind of Saturday Night Live. It is what it is. We're not really going back in and removing people's ums or doing things like that. We're doing some, we call it sweetening, where we're taking some of the sound and just kind of normalizing it and then we publish. I mean, we don't spend a lot of time on it.
Well, no, we don't. And I'm about to drop something on you. Back to our buddy John Ray. Found this because we got to the point where we were paying maybe 15.
Right.
Because we do a lot. We do a lot. we crank out a lot of content across the 10 studios. But John Ray tripped over this thing. The technology is just getting there, right? Artificial intelligence now, for a fraction of that kind of money, will do what these kids were doing for us, 2-3 years ago. So you definitely, if you don't go out with any other URL today, auphonic.com, AUPHONIC.com. They've got like 2 hours of free stuff too. You can try it out.
Spell it through again.
Auphonic, AUPHONIC.com. Auphonic.com.
What's happened, the evolution of podcasting, obviously you see it hasn't been around very long, and like they mentioned earlier, it's still kind of in its infancy in a lot of areas, but a lot of the things that used to cost a lot of money to hire audio professionals to do a lot of the nuts and bolts of this, it's now computers can do that. And it's replaced a lot of these humans that we were paying a lot of money per episode for is now pennies. If you're okay with machines doing that kind of work.
This thing is the shiznit, guys.
And it
I'm telling
happens
you.
in seconds. I mean, we would get a turnaround in 24 hours, 48 hours, and now these things turn around in seconds.
An hour or so, maybe I get back in 5 minutes. It's ready to rock. I'll probably pay $1.50, $2. Yeah.
I have two questions. The first question is probably just as simple as you mentioned in terms of how you can record a podcast. So the intro, you have to have a nice intro with music. Is it easy enough to like blend the music and then start the talking? And do you have to, or should you also have an ending with music, or do you just end by saying have a fantastic week, see you all next time, or do you play music at the end? And how do you blend the music? It's easy to talk and press play or record and upload, but what about the intro? And should that be the same all of the time, the same music, the same welcome to, etc.?
So great set of questions. I'll tell you what our journey has been. I don't know that there's right or wrong answers to any of that, but I'll share with you what our journey has been. From the very beginning, again, early on, we would pay someone, a smart person. We would go and find, it was very important to us, and it probably will be to you, we didn't want to pay these ASCAP fees, so it was very important to use royalty-free music. And so we've invested in like a library of a couple $100 or something. And now we can use all the royalty-free music we want. Back in the day, though, we would reach out to that same smart person that was doing our, and we'd say, okay, Krista or Tom or whoever, we just sold a new show, or we're just starting a new show, we need a new intro. So what we would do is we had everything we needed to record the voice part, right? So in the voice part, we'd have, like in my wife's probably the voice, welcome to the High Velocity Radio Show, where we celebrate top performers producing better results in less time. Now here's your host, Stone Payton. All right, so it might be, I don't know who did it might be Krista. So you lay the voice down on that, and then we would send that to a smart person and say, take that, and then here's some royalty-free music, and in that case you want some up-tempo stuff, and then they would do the magic blending and all that. Now those of you who are a little more technologically inclined, if you jump on the Audacity or the WavePad or some of these things, you're probably smarter than me, you probably figure out how to do that blending yourself. I never could really figure that out. So I have been paying other people to do it until this very recent tool I can share with you. But yeah, go ahead.
I just want to share that we use Anchor FM to record, and it's an app where you can go. It's an app where you can go online and you can record there, you can edit there, and you can record an intro. And it's really simple to edit off the beginning and add background music to it. And it has all these options of different background. It's great for starting off. So that's
Anchor
FM.
AnchorFM.com.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
And it also, when you publish, it'll also send it to iTunes, Spotify.
Oh, really?
Everywhere as well.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's Anchor.fm.
AnchorFM.com. AnchorFM.com.
Oh, well, I'm gonna look into that. I'm not familiar. Thank you. Fantastic. So you could go in there and just make an intro.
Sorry?
You could go in there. Somebody of my skills, I could go in there.
Yeah, seriously. This I learned all this stuff really just by trial and
R-
error.
yeah.
And I have a co-host, and we record in different areas. I was living in LA. I just moved back here, but I was in LA. She was here. We recorded on Anchor every single time we recorded, and I would go in, edit out the pieces, create the intro, blend the music, and it's really simple.
And
I
you
promise.
merged
I
her,
promise you.
merged her.
Yeah, the whole recording is me and her. 'Cause you can, when you go in, you can add a person. You can send a text, a link, and then when they click the link, it brings them into the call or to the thing, and then it records everything. You hit in, and then
Is it a subscription?
No, that's her secret. She had her partner pay. I was going to end the workshop with that. That's what I do. Lee pays for everything. Really? Wow. There you go. Very cool. Okay, so this Anchor thing, great, good stuff.
Now, let me ask you, if I'm trying to connect the end benefit of revenue generation or sales product to, I mean, if you're distributing a podcast, you must have some motivation, or you're selling a product, or you're selling a book. Can you connect that outcome to just, or is it just you want to have a conversation with the other?
You are now in my lane, buddy. I had not heard that question. That, if I have anything to offer between the two of us, that is our lane. So with all due respect, the vast majority of those 700,000 people that he talked about aren't helping very many people, and they ain't making much money. And at the risk of sounding a little bit immodest, we have absolutely, at Business Radio X, cracked the code for helping people and making money with this platform, with, I will say one caveat, in terms of serving the B2B market. I do not know, nor does he, how to use we may have some ideas. We do not have documented experience helping people making money in the B2C market. But we kind of got it figured out on the B2B. So, yeah, Paul.
And especially hyper-local. If you're trying to...
What? Go ahead.
Keep on going.
If you're trying to grow your business locally here in town and want more local business, the way we do it works to make money using this platform. If you want to have a national presence and be famous and be kind of a cult of personality, that's a different animal altogether.
All right, so let's do this. Probably about time for a bio break. Let's take maybe, what do you think, maybe a 10-minute break? Is that too long?
That's good.
All right, let's take a 10-minute break. We'll come back and we'll tell you what we think we know about that. Does that work? All right, good deal. All right. Okay, so when we broke, we had talked a little bit about some of the burning questions on your mind, and we suggested that we would try to share with you what we think we've learned about actually going out there and helping people and making money with this platform. Very early when we started, I suggested to you that we would use the word serve as a framework for that. Let me fill that out for you, and then I'm going to get the smart guy up here, and we're going to ask him about some of those components and see if we can't find some application points for each of your individual situations. Let me fill out that acrostic for you. The S in that word serve means select. And again, in our model, we applying it to going to market. For us, that means select potential client. So in the Business Radio X model, our studio partners, our client host, they, with a little bit of help from us, they are targeting a very specific group of people who are important to them, whom they want to serve, many of whom they want to write them a check. So we spend a lot of time on the who and the why, right? Not just a quickie little exercise. That is all of our time is spent on that. And then we will help them reverse engineer a show that will deliver those people in the room with them, and we'll show them how to build relationships. And our value proposition as a result is, if I put you in front of 150 people next year who are most important to you, your best clients, your most coveted prospects, your most trusted referral sources, is that going to move the needle in your business? If the answer to that is yes, and what you sell is worth $10,000 or more, then you're going to be pretty open at least to the idea of writing me a $20,000 check as opposed to giving me $50 to do an ad about your business. So that's our model. Very different than traditional podcasting. So that's the select. The first E there is engage. Now for us, as a sales framework, that means engage with guest experience. I think I mentioned to you very early on, guest experience in our model, paramount. And I'll try to be polite. I just say I don't care about the listener. In our model, that's gravy. If a whole bunch of people listen, that's fantastic. I'm worried about the 3 listeners in the room. Those are the people that I'm serving. So for us, it's all about guest experience. We're going to tap his brain in a minute to just kind of think through some things you can do to really elevate that guest experience and put you in genuine relationship with them to the point that they really want to reciprocate and help you any way they can, and to the point where at least a percentage of them would like to write you a check to do what you do. So that's that first E, engage with the guest experience. The R is relate the opportunity. Now for us, we're kind of now in the business of showing the John Rays of the world, people who run our other studios, how to relate our opportunity. In our studio in Sandy Springs, if I get an attorney or a CPA or someone who sells software or a marketing consultant, we'll share with them how to use the platform to tee them up to relate the opportunity. But that's important that you've put some forethought and you have some intention behind how you're going to relate the opportunity. So if you're going to podcast for profit, you do want to select, you do want to engage, and you want to be very well prepared to relate the opportunity. The next one, represented by the V, is verify, and specifically in the Business Radio X sales model that we teach our studio partners, it's verify, desire, authority, and capital. Now, I mentioned to you very early in our time together, this guy took a shine to me 30 years ago, this multimillionaire that I met a long time ago, and I told him I wanted to be rich. I accidentally asked him a question that he teaches in his sales training for verifying desire, authority, and capital. At that stage of the conversation, he called out, because I had shared with him and he had drawn out from me because he had engaged me as we were talking. He found out I was recently divorced. I had just been fired from a job, and I had lost a son who only lived for a day and a half, and he felt like I was really rebounding, and he felt like, maybe now the timing is not good. There's a lot of turmoil in your life. And it was just a question that came to mind. I had not stayed up and read his book or anything, and I said, well, if you weren't concerned about all that turmoil, then I didn't say in your opinion, do you feel, I learned that later. I said, if you weren't concerned about all that, Mr. Brown, would you give me a shot? And he grinned ear to ear, and I found out like a week later that that's like page 54 in his sales manual, is to isolate and verify a concern. This is not a sales training class, but one of the big mistakes most salespeople make, and particularly in the professional services arena, is they'll get a concern or objection, and they've been so well trained to go meet it, right? But so often those are red herrings, right? So one of the things that Steve Brown would teach in his Creative Selling Strategies and Tactics course is isolate and verify the concern. Well, you want to verify a lot of things. You want to verify desire, authority, and capital, and we have a lot of strategies, techniques, disciplines in which we engage to make sure that we verify desire, authority, and capital throughout that process. If you're podcasting for profits, you're going to want to get good at that as well. Execute, there's a lot to be said there around surprise and delight and onboarding, hand-holding, and all that. But a lot of the execute, we started to touch on, right? How are we going to get an intro together? We're going to do phone. We're going to do a conference call. We're going to get them in the room, all that stuff. That is our model. Select, engage, relate, verify, and execute. And that is what, over at the BRX system, that's what we live and die by. For whatever that's worth, those are some, if you don't want to use my goofy acrostic, that's okay, but you might want to think through some of those ideas and questions as you're going through. What I think would be helpful is for them to not have to listen to me anymore for a little while. And if you would just maybe give them the short version of the origin story and the problem we're trying to solve, I'm not trying to sell you guys on being a Business Radio X client. The purpose is, I think if you knew our story and how we're trying to use this to help people, I think it might stimulate your thinking and inform the conversation further. Do you think that would be helpful? Yeah. And I'm going to have him do it because he invented the darn thing.
All right. This business for me, we were podcasting before there was podcasting. We started at the beginning of podcasting. So we went into doing the work that we're doing before there was podcasting. So the tactics that we use were always focused on the objective of selling somebody something. And then podcasting happened, so it allowed us to use that platform to do this at scale. And now with the pricing getting lower, it makes it more and more affordable. So my background's in advertising. So I have a degree in advertising. And I've been a copywriter for many years before I got into this. And in copywriting and advertising, your goal is to persuade someone to take an action, right? That's the objective. That's why you're doing this. So I always looked at this platform as a way to reach a hard-to-reach person in order for them to take some sort of action. So that's why we build shows the way that we build shows. We spend the most amount of time in this process of saying, who is my target? Who do I want to serve? Who do I want to reach? Who do I want to persuade? And then, like Stone said, we reverse engineer a show to reach that target. So everybody here, if you're doing a podcast for a certain group, you have to be clear on who that group is. And then you have to be crystal clear. And the clearer you are, and if you can, we say, put them in kind of a bucket. If you go, okay, if I know that there's 1,000 of these people, 100 or however many they are, in our model, we identify that for our clients, and then we get them in the room, and then we invite them on shows. We make the show about whoever's in that bucket. So now it's a lot of you, it sounds like a lot of your podcasts, you want to be national and you want it to be for the world. In our model, we're hyper-local. We focus exclusively on people that want to serve a certain group of people that are hard to reach in their local market so they can meet them face-to-face so that they can do business with them. And that's all we focus on. We're not kind of star makers. We're not here to try to make the next celebrity podcaster. And that's what most podcasters are. Now, Paul mentioned early on, there's 700,000 podcasts right now on iTunes, which is a lot more. When I started, there was only a handful. And the podcast that I did at the time when I started, we were top ranked on iTunes, like from the very beginning, because there were so few of them. And we were early on. Of those 700,000, we just spoke at a conference earlier this year, Stone and I, and there's maybe 100,000, 150,000 that are still active. That active means do a podcast once a month. So of those 700,000, most of them aren't doing it regularly. They started it and they quit, and they're all out there. So they still count all those as podcasts. And that's the beauty, like we all discussed. They're on demand. You can listen to them whenever you want. So that's an important distinction, that if you want to do this and really kind of integrate it in your business, you have to have kind of a business plan. It can't, if you're doing this to be famous and you think I'm going to be funny and hilarious and be charming and I'm going to do this and you're not going to make money, because most listeners, what is it, average listener for most podcasts thinks less than 100 maybe for all the podcasters. So it's hard to get an audience where someone's going to pay you to sponsor your show unless you have an audience that's so large that it's worth their money to sponsor your show. So in our model, we don't have a traditional advertising monetization plan. We are a relationship building tool for our clients to help them get into relationships and prospect for hard to reach people that it's going to write them a check for something more than $10,000. Because our fee for doing what we do is a minimum of $10,000. So it has to make financial sense for them to be able to sell somebody something of value in order to work with us. So that's who we target, that's who we work with, and that's why we're trying to build a network around the country to put these entrepreneurs that want to help other people in those markets do the same exact thing. So podcasting, you got to get clear on the audience, and you got to create content and create a reason for them to listen.
Tell them a little bit about what you already brought to the table, but I think we've done a pretty good job of adding some structure, some rigor, some discipline to it, how we craft the guest experience, because that's going to translate to everybody, I think.
Right, but ours is face-to-face. I mean, most podcasters are creating a guest experience over the phone.
Right.
So, and that's why over the phone is tricky to monetize, because if you're trying to build a relationship with somebody over the phone, you don't see body language, you don't kind of really get to know them. And in our world, we're dealing with people face-to-face. So we call them relationship-building moments that we try to incorporate through the whole process to build a relationship, to build rapport, so that there's business can be transacted. And I think that a lot of people just get they're enamored that podcasting's hot and a lot of people do it, and there's a lot of, not a lot, but there's some famous people that are making a lot of money doing it, but those are like kind of lottery ticket kind of situations. Those are kind of cult of personalities. You can look at famous people have podcasts that they can't keep it going. And if a famous person who has a following of millions of followers can't build an audience for their podcast and make money off of it, it's very difficult for a regular person to do that. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's just a difficult challenge. In our thing, if you sell something worth $10,000 or more, you can get people in front of you to be part of a show. And if you do, that's to be part of our network. You can do it yourself in your own business by creating a show about whoever your potential client is, and then invite them in your office and interview them, or go to their office and interview them. And then you can monetize it that way. But to do it in a traditional advertising, ad, sponsor world, it's just really difficult to do it that way.
I just had a real quick, because you touched on something I think that's kind of important, is can you step down through that business model that you just mentioned with respect to, I'm going to bring a couple people into my office, and then we're going to get that ecosystem built where I can make that product sell. Can you step through that business model?
Like for a consultant, like say a consultant wants to serve a group of people?
Yeah, an example, a scenario.
Okay, an example, like I'll give you some of our clients that we have in our studio. So we have a commercial real estate broker. Okay, he's a commercial real estate broker. He wants to sell office space to people. His niche that he serves are startups that are funded. So these are startups that have gotten investment money. He knows that they usually hang out in incubators or co-working spaces. So those people have to leave usually in a period of time, or if they're growing, they're going to outgrow the co-working space. So he knows they're primed to get commercial real estate space. So now how does he meet this person? If he just calls them up and says, hey, I'm a great commercial real estate broker, they're like, well, I'm not ready yet, or whatever. It's hard for him to differentiate himself from all the other commercial real estate brokers that are probably attacking them in the same manner. So what we designed for him is we created a show called Tech Talk, where he interviews the CEOs of fast-growing technology firms. So now he's not Joey, the commercial broker, calling them. He's, hey, I'm the host of this show. I think you'd be a great guest to come in the studio and be on that show. And he invites 2 or 3 other CEOs of technology firms to come on the show to talk about their business. There's no mention of commercial real estate. The show is only about technology firms doing amazing things. So they're happy to come on the show to talk about their business, because every business person in this room knows that if the media calls and they want you to talk about your business, not many of us are going to say, no, thank you. I don't want to be on the media. I like to be the best kept secret. Like, no one's going to do that, So the media isn't calling most business people. So that's why we're different. Business Radio X is different. We are calling business people, and we're saying, hey, I want to hear your story. Come on and talk about you're doing amazing things. So if I'm truly doing this with the heart of service and I really want to talk about your business, then I can build a relationship. So if I interview you, and during the course of the interview, you tell me, oh, I'm growing so fast, is what happens for Joey. At the end, when it's all over and we've had this great experience, Joey can then follow back up with him and say, hey, during the interview, you said that you're growing and you're going to outgrow your space. I'm a commercial broker. I'd love to talk to you about maybe there's ways I can help you. Yeah.
Can we take somebody in the room? Because you're at a level that's different than I think a lot of people here are at. I mean, there's some existing podcasting. Can we take one of the ideas in the room and try to mastermind a business model for
yeah,
them?
I mean, and the way our lens, again, if you're in the room and you want to do a podcast to reach local people here in town, and then that's your objective, is to get more local clients, I'm happy to do that. If you want to be famous and you want to have a show because you want to get moms, not to pick on you, but moms, I mean, that's not what we do. So if I'm happy to, right now, this is one of my superpowers.
No, this is one of you does really well.
That if you
would
tell
really
me,
be well served.
if
we
you
could
tell
do
me
a show concept meeting
about
with someone
anybody,
that is
happy to do it.
B2B. Go. Somebody.
The B2B and
I'm just trying to figure out as far as the business that I would be targeting, the businesses that I'm targeting.
if you want more local clients, if that's your business, local clients here in Atlanta, I'm happy to brainstorm a show concept.
So like for my law practice.
Okay, go
All right,
ahead.
so I only want local people because I'm only licensed to practice here in Georgia.
And then what type? We call this a show concept meeting, and these are the kind of questions. And this is how. And when you're analyzing your own business, I recommend you get this granular. So tell me about your perfect client.
So my perfect client would be someone who, I guess, needs legal advice in one of the areas of my practice.
Okay, so where are your existing clients? Your best client right now?
My best client, where are they?
No, what do they do? What's their?
It would be someone that, let's just say, was involved in a car accident.
Okay, perfect. So they're involved in a car accident. That person, you're competing against all those billboard lawyers, right? Or are you one of those billboard lawyers?
No, I'm not.
You strong arm, the Superman, the Rock, they're like, oh, that's some kind of name that they go by.
Okay, perfect.
And I don't want to be one of those.
Okay, I'm with you, because this is my dream, because I have an idea for personal injury attorneys in order to help them grow their business if they want to do it in kind of a renegade manner that you can compete with these. I mean, those people are spending millions of dollars.
Right.
Millions of dollars on those billboards so that they're everywhere because it's called ubiquity. They want to be around when that happens because who knows if somebody in this room is going to be in an accident. And then you're like, I'm in an accident, who do I call? And I look up, and then I'm like, I'll call that guy, right? So that's why they're everywhere. And they spend millions of dollars for that privilege. So it's hard for the little person to kind of compete against that.
Right.
Okay, so this is what I have a plan for you. I've already thought about this. What I would do...
Call from the hospital. She needs the medical professionals to call her.
Right, so, okay.
It's technically unethical for us to do that.
Right.
We are not supposed to solicit clients that way.
Right, and that's...
We can advertise, but we can't cold call. Like, I can't find out that you were in an accident and call and say, hey, I can't show up at your house like these other people are.
Right, so she needs a referral in. She needs a referral in. That's what you need, right?
She's doing a podcast and she's educating people about the court system and stuff.
Right. That's a common way, and that's again this is a common thought process of podcasters. They think I'm good at whatever. I'm good at legal stuff. So I'm going to do a legal podcast, and I'm going to show everybody how smart I am. And then you're going to create all this thought leadership. That's fantastic. You can do that all day long. There's value in doing that. I'm not saying there's not. There's not going to be a lot of money in doing that. I would do that on the side. We do that, pro tips. We create thought leadership content for ourselves, but it's not something that we do to monetize. That's like brand building. Brand building is just general information about yourself, and that's important, but it's not going to kind of move the needle in your business. You need referrals of clients. Right. That's what you need. That's where the money is, right? Right. So what I would recommend, and this is what I've recommended to other people that haven't done it, I think that you should tell me about your client base. Who typically hires you? Give me what's the demographics of your typical clients?
So most of my clients are either people who are referred by, most of my clients are from former clients.
Okay,
so
but tell me about that individual.
So,
are they men? Are they women? Are they executives? Are they poor? Are they rich? They're minority? They're not minority? Tell me about it.
Who pays their bills?
So I would say the age range is wide ranging. Like I have minors to senior citizens. The different demographic is more people who are located near where my office is.
Where's your office?
So my office is in Decatur. So most of my clients are in that general area. And most of them actually come to me, like I said, either through word of mouth, because I grew up in the area where my office is literally a mile away. So people know my name, but I would say most of my business either comes, like I said, from word of mouth or Google. They look up an attorney that's near them. They don't want to come downtown. They don't want to pay for parking. They don't want to be in traffic. Right. So they come around the corner. So I've kind of made that my niche, like being the neighborhood attorney.
Right.
And so, you know, even when they come to me and I don't necessarily practice the area that they need, I tell them I can refer you to someone that I've worked with and that I trust. And so it's more local.
Right. So I would do something that's local, if that's the niche, is local. And in our world, we focus on business people, and I would focus on your community. So I would focus on spotlighting the influencers in your community.
Okay.
So I would do it like you said, Decatur. So like maybe do like kind of a Decatur, the city of Decatur business community or the community, and then focus in on all the different stuff, the people, because you want to interview people because you want to get to know them, because some of them are going to refer to you their cousin or whatever.
Right.
So I would interview the churches, the pastors, talk about your church, why should someone go to your church instead of somebody else's? And you just spotlighting everybody, and you become a go-to resource for that group of Decaturans, and then and you become a trusted person. You're now no longer a lawyer.
Right.
You're now the host of a show that's spotlighting the community. So you can bring the Chamber of Commerce. I would bring definitely all the churches. That to me is an important component of this. The business owners, the
community events.
Right, the event people, like all the stuff. And then you become the go-to resource for that group of people.
Right. Okay.
And then, but again, for us, in our model, we don't care about the listener. You're going to get listeners that want to know about what's happening in Decatur, and then if somebody calls from that, that's great. But what you want to do is build referral relationships with every one of your guests.
Right.
You want their cousin and friend, and you want them to think, oh, you need a lawyer, you got an accent, call her.
Or the show may not even be necessarily about law.
It isn't about law. It isn't. It has nothing to do. Right. It's not about law. But it could be. But this is the media.
You can do tips.
Right.
You know.
Well, you could do that on the side, but on this show, I would make it pure. I would make it brought to you by your law firm.
Right.
They're the sponsor of that show. I wouldn't have other sponsors because you don't want to clutter that. This is you're the media. Again, you're changing your perspective of how you see yourself. You're no longer a lawyer. You're the media that's serving Decatur. And that's all you care about is Decatur. And you want more people to know about you and how you're serving that community by kind of telling the story of those people in that community. And then that'll be kind of over time, you'll get an audience of people in Decatur that want to know what's what. And then you become a trusted resource there. And then hopefully over time, you're going to, but again, it's hard. Those kind of businesses are hard for us because your client comes so randomly. It's not like if I sell to insurance people, the more insurance people I meet, I know that I'm going to be able to sell one of them something. Somebody just randomly, like if one of us left the room in a minute and we got an accident, we think of you, but the client could come out of nowhere.
Right.
And it's not like you get repeat clients,
Same lady keeps getting hit by the bus.
But it's hard to plan for that.
Every 3 years.
Every 3 years she gets hit by the bus.
Right.
I've had a divorce client 3 times now.
Well, again, if you're doing a divorce, if that's your target, then I have a different strategy for divorce. So whatever the niche is, I would have a show about serving that group. Like if I was if divorce was something or family law was something, and you were targeting women, maybe they're going through a divorce, maybe that's a target. You could do a show of like women-owned business owners, so you know that they got some money and then they're in a certain stage, so that you're ready for them if they get in a divorce situation or they know some other people.
So while you were in the early stages of speaking, and I don't know your name, I'm sorry.
It's okay,
Trishelle. So while you were speaking with Trishelle, the early stage of that conversation is one of the places that I've found people have a really hard time with, which is choking down their ideal customer and saying, yes, I service all these people, but this is the one that really I'd love to build in your case, a firm around. And sort of, when you say my client is everybody, my client is, teenagers to elderly, my client is men and women and all of this, it makes it really hard to me personally, it makes it hard for you to connect with a group, which is where I think you get the most benefit.
Right, because B2B is different than she's B2C. That's a B2C play, not a B2B play. A B2B play is usually pretty specific. Right. You know that I have to get in front of the senior vice president of HR in order to sell somebody something, or I have to get in front of the CEO. You know who the group is. You can put them in that proverbial bucket, and you know I got to meet more of them, and the thinking is if I knew more of them, I'm going to make more money. Yeah, Paul.
And here, if I could just make a plug for SBDC. This is what we help clients. This is what we help clients with, literally to get down, and we have different ways of doing it. But one thing I think about, if you had to define your ideal client by 20 different characteristics, right, to that level of detail, that's almost how specific you need to be, and maybe even more than that, right? So that's just kind of a start. Anna's on her way back. She's gonna bring a document that we utilize with the resource that we utilize. It's called a tapestry segmentation. I won't go into detail. I'll let her touch base on that to get more into that, but specifically to that question, because a lot of business owners peers struggle with this. So if you struggle with it in your business, you're absolutely going to struggle with it trying to find an audience for a podcast if you haven't even defined an audience really for your business overall. So we'll.
And then you got to define what you want to sell to them.
Absolutely. And well, let's back that up. What do they need? Right. It doesn't matter what I want to sell to them. It matters what do they need, what are their challenges, what are their issues, and how are you meeting that need?
For sure. Yeah.
Right, from that standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you had a question?
So, I wanted to be clear. It's not just a podcast for moms looking to feed their children. So, it's more of a platform for me because I have a cookbook and publication for moms. That's my target audience, right? But it can be a step parent or whoever, but I'm just particular to moms. I have a foodie soft line that's in print, a pepper sauce in manufacturing. So I'll sponsor my own show. I get so many DMs and inboxes about how can I cook this, how can I cook that. It's easier for me to do a podcast, so everybody gets the information at one time, instead of me answering every single inbox or DM I get.
Right. Now, in your case, so you have your own food line.
Right.
What's DM?
But no, but I want to talk about. See, I have a strategy. If you have your own line of food, so you want to get that into stores.
Right.
Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the process. It's trademarked.
Okay, so you have a line of things to get into stores.
Right.
So I would make a podcast about the types of stores you want to get in. So if you want to get in gift shops, or if you want to get in boutique cooking stores, I would get a list of all of the cooking stores and say, hey, I'm doing a podcast that's spotlighting the best cooking stores in America, these mom and pop cooking stores, and you spotlight their cooking store, and it's brought to you by your sauce or whatever the product is you sell, and then you have something to swing back around and saying, hey, I know in your store you kind of spotlight these kind of things. My day job is I sell these kind of sauces. I would love to introduce you to these kind of sauces. Absolutely. It's a lot easier to have that conversation after you serve them by spotlighting their business rather than you being another one vendor that's trying to get stuff in their store.
Okay, so now I think I kind of understand.
But you see, that's not a show about cooking. Yeah. It's a show about their business.
But I can have segments where I, entertain.
Right.
Yeah, because I think the first instinct is to make it about
you.
yourself.
That's the go-to move by 99% of people. It's always about me. In our model, it's always about our prospect.
Okay. So if I'm a physician and I want to get patients, maybe I would highlight other physicians.
Well, or who do you get referrals?
Well, when I have a business, yes, I would be referred.
Okay, so like we had a client, his business was, what was it? It was bariatric, not bariatric.
Yeah.
Hyperbaric chambers. Mm-hmm. So that was he was having a hard time getting in front of physicians to refer business they're good for wounds, like if you have diabetes or open wounds, it helps heal it faster.
Yeah.
So he couldn't get any time with doctors because they're busy and they don't take vendor calls usually, and then they changed the rule where they can't like hang out there and give them free stuff, right? So what he did is he created a show called Top Docs where he profiled the practices of best doctors. So he comes in, sponsored by them. Now they'll talk to him now. because he served them first by giving them a chance to talk about themselves. And you know, they're so busy, but all of a sudden they're not busy to come on a show to talk about their business.
Yeah.
They make time for that.
Yeah.
But if I go in their office and say, hey, I got this new widget, I'd love for you to see it, I'm too busy for that. So it's how you frame it. And again, by being a podcaster, you are now the media. And when you're the media, you have privileges. The media has access to things that regular people don't have access to because people want the media to cover whatever it is that they're doing.
Right.
Tell them about the Power Partner strategy. That's an important piece of it. This mental shift, though, is absolutely fundamental.
Yeah.
Right.
But tell them about the Power Partner strategy.
Okay, so now once you have your show and it's focused on who your best client is, right? Now you want to serve the whole ecosystem, not just that individual. So we call it a Power Partner, Power Partner program. That you want to know who are the people that serve that same group. So like say you were talking to doctors, like say you wanted to meet more doctors because you want them to refer more business to you. You go, okay, what are the associations that serve doctors? What associations are doctors members of? Right? Because they're members of some group. There's some trade group that serves everybody, right? So you want to invite them as part of the show too. Now you want to invite them because for two reasons. One, you want them to help distribute the content after you've created it. And it's good for them to distribute it because it's about their members, right? Because you're targeting the same group. So what we like to do is we like to invite them on the show just to learn about them. They're going to have a great experience. And then we say, hey, you know what would be great? Why don't you come on a regular rhythm to talk about what's happening in your association? And they go, oh, that's a great idea. I love that. Because the media isn't talking to these people. Nobody is giving these associations the time of day. So if a media platform goes to them and say, I'd like you to come back next month or in 2 months, they're like, yeah, I'll do that. And then you say, oh, and bring some of your members. And guess what those members are? Those are your prospects. They're helping you prospect. And by you creating this partnership, and we call them their sponsors, they're co-sponsors of the show, and now they're in there with you. So now they're your partner, and they're going to share the content, which is a win for you, and they're going to bring in their members, which is a win for you too. It's a win-win for everybody.
And it's not in your face.
It's not. It's elegant. We try to do everything in an elegant manner.
When people see you and I walk down the hall, that's the first thing that occurs. They think
elegant. Yeah. Question.
So, what I'm sort of taking from your comment isn't so much the desire to build a large audience, but to build a very quality audience.
Right.
Is that what we're so?
Right. So for
you
our
have 150 people, they need to be the right 150
exactly.
people listening.
Because again, in our model, we're B2B. Most professional service people in the B2B world don't need 100 new clients. They need 2 new clients, 5 new clients. That moves the needle in their business. So to try to get 1 million listeners, to get down to 100,000 website visitors, to get down to 10,000 that went to my website and got the white paper, to get down to 5, it's silly. So we just focus on who buys your stuff. Make the show about the person that buys your stuff. Invite them on, meet them, build a relationship, and hopefully you sell them something at some point. That's a different mindset. So the audience comes last in our world. And most podcasters think the audience is the most important people. I got to get more listeners. And that's why, in my opinion, that the media is doing so poorly now. Traditional media is getting less and less people paying attention to it. Because in order to get more and more people to watch them and pay attention to them, they have to do crazier and crazier things. So they're giving you a kind of a terrible... It's like junk food. They're giving you junk food instead of what you need. And our shows, when you focus in a group of people and really serve them and really support and celebrate their work, you're giving them a good interview. They appreciate that. That's good quality stuff that they'll be able to use later on in their own marketing. So you're giving them high quality content that they can repurpose, and then you have a high quality relationship with exactly who you want to meet to help you grow your business. But it's counterintuitive. We're doing things not how traditional... not everything. A lot of what you see in podcasting is how to be a celebrity, how to get more listeners, how to get more Instagram, all this other stuff. And for our clients, that's not that important. We're focused on helping them grow their business.
Some of the magic that we experience in studio, and I know we're very biased to the in-studio experience, but if they passed a law tomorrow that said you're confined, you can't do that, you have to do it on the phone, there's still a lot of that magic can still happen if it's structured, right? Yes?
Right. So in our world, again, we're hyper-local in the studio because we want to make face-to-face. Most people buy things from other people, and they, at some point, meet them face-to-face. And in today's world, a lot of stuff happens virtually and online, and then on Amazon, you never meet anybody face-to-face, you just buy the thing. In podcasting, if you want to do it over the phone or do it through Skype or any of these other kind of online tools, what I would recommend is you build in, we call them relationship building moments, build in a call before the show to kind of prep them about what they can expect. Build in a call after the show so that you can recap about, show them how to leverage their thing after. You want to create as many moments as possible because ultimately you want to build a relationship with this person in order that hopefully they refer you business or do something you want them to do. So anybody, if you're doing a guest-oriented show, we call them relationship building moments that you want to kind of sprinkle in there again in as elegant a way as possible that isn't overtly selling them something, but by serving them first and giving them either preparation to do a good job during the interview, and then after, great ways to leverage the content after it's done. So they're getting value at every step.
That was one of the questions I was going to ask. So you've done the show, you recorded it. You talk in a little bit more detail about
what happens next.
What happens next?
So, well, you're going to have, in our world, you have a podcast. Now you have the audio file. And as Stone mentioned earlier, we put minimal effort into polishing it up and making it super nice. We always have professional intros and professional closes attached to the interview. And then we post it on our website, and then that goes out to all the different channels that Stone mentioned. If you go to iTunes, that gets you to 80% of the people. You can throw it on Google Play and Spotify, and you'll probably hit another 10%. But that's going to most people. But you can use the content in lots of other ways too, and that's an important consideration depending on how you're going to use the content. You can transcribe the content and turn all those words into digital text. And that digital text is important, especially if it's B2B, and you want to kind of get your website more higher ranked. This creates a lot of words that are fresh, original, about a specific topic that's important to your business. And if it all lives on your website, that'll help you be found, because when people search, anything that's said in there will be one of the search results. So I would definitely transcribe it if you can. Another thing people can do is you can take out little clips, take out like kind of highlights of the interview, pull them out. You can make them into video. You can use the audio as a soundtrack, add photos, and you can make audio into video. There's lots of ways to repurpose the content in different channels. We have people like right now, Stone and I are taking some of the podcasts that we do for these tips, and we're compiling them, and we're going to write a book we're not going to write a book, we're going to just take those things, transcribe them, and put them together in a collection, and it'll become a book around this serve concept. So there's lots of ways to repurpose the content to get more bang for the effort.
On the content side of things, in relationship to the type of podcast that would be in this room, are you an advocate for fresh content or evergreen content?
I'm not seeing a distinction. Like content,
like time-sensitive content. So if I do a sports show, it's not. You're not going to care a year and a half ago.
Well, you're not going to carry
what
next
I said
week.
This weekend about the Falcons game.
Right. So, in our world, we don't do anything like that. Everything we do are interview-based, so they tend to be more evergreen. We don't do breaking news or something like that. And we don't do politics. We stay in our lane. We're business to business. We're business people talking to business people. But this stuff is on demand. That's the beauty of podcasting, is that people can find it at any time. I've had people tell me that 2 years after they did their interview that somebody called them and hired them for something. So, Google is forever. You put this stuff out there, it's there forever. and people can find it. And then people do find it. And usually in a podcast situation, just so you understand this a little bit, the numbers only grow in terms of listenership and audience. It never gets worse, right? So if you put a podcast out today and then, you're doing it every week or whatever, and then somebody finds it in 6 months, if they like your podcast, they're going to download a bunch of them. And they'll go back and go, oh, I like this person, and then they'll go and they'll download 20 at a time.
I want to throw one more thing into this. So I've had the opportunity to be on Business Radio X, and when you're on the radio with these guys, you get a coffee mug. And that is my third favorite coffee mug. The second favorite is my wife's Business Radio X coffee mug that she got a few years ago. And then the other is a company that I own. But the reason I'm even bringing it up is because when I reach up into the cabinet every time, I think about the interview that I did. I think about the experience, and so they've spoken a lot to the idea of the sort of experience of the person that's coming into the room, the person that you're interviewing, and I just thought that was a really nice touch, and it was something that creates not only evergreen content but evergreen memory of the experience.
Right, and again, that's in our in-studio experience. We create a lot of those. Again, these are those relationship-building moments. Those are the surprise and delight moments. Like, you had an interview, you didn't expect a mug. You had an interview, you were happy having the interview. And then somebody comes and goes, here, you got a mug too? You're like, oh my God, I got a mug too? Like that's something now you're going to talk about, and you're going to have that fond memory no matter when. I can't tell you how many, when we go to meetings all over the place, we look around and there's the Business Radio X mug somewhere. We spend a lot of money on the mugs, and it's on purpose because it's kind of like a trophy. Because that person proudly puts it out there because they were part of a show. That's a conversation starter for them. People go, what did you get that for? How'd you get that? And it's like, oh, I was on the show. It's like, oh, you were on a show? Like, that's a thing. And so if I would tell you anything or take away anything from this is when you're doing a podcast and you're doing a show, that's a big deal. That's a lot of people, you're making their day when they're coming on your show. And, that's an important thing, and it's nice to make someone's day.
So in terms of the guest experience, how detailed are you in terms, let's say if you have a 30-minute show, of trying to choreograph every minute? Some people say just be spontaneous and just say what comes to mind. Other people say, you need to be extremely organized. Kind of what's your take on preparation for the actually running through the show?
So the way that we facilitate our shows, we ask the guests to submit questions. We use a calendaring system called Schedule Once. There's a company here called Calendly. And what we do is we drive our guests to this calendar system so they can book themselves on a show. So if I say you want to go to Atlanta Business Radio, I'll send you the link to Atlanta Business Radio, and then you'll have a form to fill out. You put your name, put all your social media stuff, and then it'll ask you some questions or topics you want us to cover during the interview. So when I'm doing an interview, I'm looking at that, and I'm not going to go down your questions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I'll use them as kind of thought starters to get the conversation going. But I want to have an authentic conversation. I don't want this to be a play. We don't have a script that I'm reading and you're reading. And a lot of times I'll have some people that come into the studio and they have their answer, they have their question they submitted and answers that they've typed up. And it'll be like, I'll say, oh, tell me what you do. And they're like, funny you should ask, Lee. Like, I'm saying that. This is what I do. Like, good question. And it's like, so if I see them reading, I want to get them out. I'm like, I'll go off their questions because I want them out of their own head. A lot of people are control people, and they got to go, I can't. And I want to know the real them. I want the listener to know the real them, and I want them to feel good about the interview. Everything we do, again, we're trying to serve the guests first, so I want them to have an interview they're proud of, that they want to share. I don't want it to be something that sounds terrible, that they're not going to be happy with. I'm there advocating for them. I want to give them as good of an experience as possible, including protecting them from themselves. Because they think that no one knows they're reading, and guess what? Everybody knows they're reading. And so I know that, so I don't want them to get into, have a piece of content that they're not proud of.
I know it wouldn't take long to tell them everything we knew. But I do have one thing I'd like to do before we wrap our part. I know you got some resources to share with them. I'm going to recommend that we take a moment and execute an action contract. And here's what I'd like you to do, if you would. Take just a few moments and write down a couple of things. One is the single most important idea that you got out of your time this morning. I'd like you to commit that to paper. And then the second thing is I'd like you to commit to paper one specific action that you're going to take in the next 72 hours. And then the third thing I'd like you to do is see if you can find someone who will check in with you and ask you about that action you took. See if you can get an accountability partner. Some of you look very trustworthy, so you may have a lot of people ask you to be their accountability partner. Some of you that you might get ducked and nobody talks to you. But if you would, take a minute, write down the single most important idea that you gained from today's conversation together, and commit to a specific action that you're going to take in that regard over the next 72 hours. And then I'm going to encourage you, don't do it right now, but before you walk out the door, see if you can't find an accountability partner that'll check in with you early next week and see how that's going. Any question about what I'd like you to do? All right, if you would, take a couple minutes and do that, and then I got one other thing I want to ask of you. All right, we're not going to ask for 15 of them, but are there one or two people that would be willing to share the single most important idea that you got out of our activity this morning?
Serve first.
Serve first. Well, good. I tell you, when you do that discipline, you get that. A lot of the other stuff just falls into place, doesn't it? The resources seem to surface. The ideas come. People genuinely want to reciprocate and help you. Well, great. I'm glad. Yeah. Anybody else want to share the single most? Yeah.
If you want to make money, it's not about you. It's about people who will bring you money.
There you go. Well, that's certainly our opinion. Hey, we don't have the whole thing figured out, but that's our experience.
Yes, you can make it on the side. It's pretty, but
yeah. Well, good. All right, one more. Anybody else be willing to share what they? Yeah, please.
I think the biggest one that stood out for me was that you don't need 1 million listeners. You just need 2 clients.
There you go. That's right. All right. Well, thank you very much for inviting us to visit with you. If there's ever anything either of us can do, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'll certainly try to serve in any way that we can. Give yourself some appreciation. Thank you.
Well, definitely want to thank you, Lee and Stone, for your time. How was that? Absolutely. Very, very knowledgeable. Absolutely. Thank you all. Absolutely.
Our pleasure.
So a couple other things we want to accomplish before we leave today. Again, you will not leave this room unless you leave us one of these. So I'm joking. It's not that intense. But yeah, we really want to know how well you learned from this process from that standpoint. But another thing that we want to kind of share a little bit more information with you, and this relates to kind of some of the questions that went around the room in terms of who is your target audience and who is, right, how do you actually navigate that? Because honestly, if you haven't really done it for your business, you can do it for your podcast, but there's a disconnect there, right, from that standpoint. So I'm going to practice something that I learned today. We have in our office a very knowledgeable, I'll say potentially even expert in the area of sales and marketing, who's been a family business owner, worked in the corporate environment, been an SBDC consultant for a couple of years, and works a lot with our clients in terms of helping them develop a very strategic but also very tactical plan as it relates to your sales and marketing process. So please welcome Anna Brumby to the front.
All right.
How'd I do? Did that work?
Thank you. Thank you, guys. This has been such a great class. From a marketing perspective, I came on a couple of years ago. We've really been trying to develop our marketing classes and support our customers in the best way we can. And podcasting, we really feel like is going to be a great avenue going forward. I love that they were touching on today, do you know your customer? So here's the biggest thing I want y'all to take away from today is that marketing is half chemistry and it's half creative. And everybody goes straight to creative and forgets about the chemistry. And I am not a creative person, but like Paul said, I come from a background of 20 years of marketing. I sold transaction processing. If you guys have 4 credit cards in your wallet, I was selling the transaction processing to all those banks that issue those cards. And then I went from that to selling rocking chairs. So I can sell y'all some oceanfront property in Arizona when we're done with all this. I've done it all. But the reason I was so successful at both of those avenues, B2B and B2C, is because I knew my customer inside and out. And if you don't know your customer and you don't know your market, you don't need to be spending money on marketing. You don't need to be, investing in podcasting or digital media or, direct mail or anything until you actually go and profile your customer, your market, and know exactly where they are, what they're thinking, what drives them to buy your product or service, and really what that customer acquisition strategy is. And podcasting is a great way to do that in today's market, depending on the market. And these guys are experts from that B2B perspective. So I teach a class twice a year now that we really focus on who is that customer, defining that market, defining your competitive advantage, where are your customers, trying to understand that back end, and then how do I develop an overall marketing plan? So not just social media, not just traditional, not just networking. It's all got to be one, and it's all got to work together. And we've all got to be talking to our customers in the same way. So I did just want to give y'all a couple things. In that class, I do have build a customer profile. You should be able to answer all these questions about your customers, B2B and B2C, right? You should know exactly what they're thinking, what drives them, what their job title is, what their economic, socio, impact is, all of that. You should know this. So I just want to give you all that to think about when you're thinking about your podcast and when you're thinking about who my customer is. And some of the resources we have to help you, especially from a B2C perspective, if that's your business model, we have what we call tapestry reports, and I love to run these for my customers. So I gave you an example of one. There are about 63 of these. This is the laptops and lattes, right? This is not going to say to you, your customers listen to podcasts and you need to go start a podcast. That's not the way it works. But it will tell you how they like to get their information, what they spend money on, where they spend their time, what interests them outside of what they're doing, what they value, what they don't value. And we can use this type of information to help you define that customer profile. And so if you guys have any doubt about who your customer is or really feel like you cannot walk into a room and go up to somebody and say, you're my customer, you're not my customer, if you can't do that, we got some work to do. Come see us. So anyways, these are great resources. We've got a lot of others. But anyways, that's my background. That's my passion. Because like I said, I'm not a creative. I can't do what these guys do. I really am not that bright. I know how to read data and read people. And that's really what marketing is all about. And that's what you guys need to focus on. We got to focus on that science before we ever go after that creative. So I hope y'all come see us. And yep, Brian.
So what's the name of your class?
It's called Madhouse Marketing. And I did not come up with the name because I'm not creative.
Do you have a date of when the 2 classes are?
Do we have? It's March.
Usually it'll be the spring and the fall.
It's spring and the fall, so we did it twice this year. All of our classes for the first and second quarter will be up by December 20th. So just keep checking our website or just email us and ask us. But the first one is going to be, I think, March, April. And it's a 4-week class. It's half a day on Friday, so it's 9 to 12, kind of like this one. And again, it's not just me getting up here talking. It's a workshop. So you guys are going to have to work, and you're going to have to present, and you're going to have to think, and you're going to have to dig in deep to impress me, or else I don't let you out of the room. That's just what happened. Yeah. All right. And again, we're not going to let you out of the room unless I see a purple form from everybody. So thank you guys for coming. Thank you for listening.
And so just to add a little bit to what Anna talked about, because you all heard the term soccer moms, right? So she mentioned there's 63 categories. Soccer mom is actually one of those 63 categories that they use basically all this type of data. So we kind of hear the term and may not connect the dots in terms of what's behind that. So Soccer Moms has a sheet like this, and literally for every one of those 63 groups, we have this document that again describes in detail exactly kind of how they operate. Another cool thing I like about this, we talk about hyper-local. If you look on the back page, you can see a heat map. So this is basically where for this one, laptops and lattes are concentrated in the United States, right? So, and again, so you can look in this case, there's a big population that's in Atlanta, right? So depending on your market, when you go through Anna's class or sit down with a consultant, this is the type of level of detail we're getting down to help you figure out, again, who they are, but also where they are, right, from that standpoint. Because you could be living in an area where you say, well, my target is laptops and lattes, but I'm in Dallas, Texas. Well, there are none in Dallas, Texas, or I guess there are. I pick Phoenix, Arizona, right? So let's just say you happen to be there, but you want to target that group. You may not be able. So you have two decisions. Either I want to keep targeting that group, I got to go somewhere else, or I need to target a different group if I want to stay in this area, right? So those are some key business decisions that are not just podcasting decisions. So that's why when you sit down with a consultant, we're looking at it comprehensively, right? And podcasting will be one of your marketing tools, in addition to whatever else is most relevant, right, to what you're doing. Does that make sense? All right, good. So any other final questions or things that we can answer for you or help you with this morning?
What's the best way to get hooked up with the consultant?
The best way is write this address down, email address down. I'll give you an email address and a phone number. So the email address is at the top of that sheet, but Atlanta at georgiasbdc.org.
Okay.
It's on the top of that sheet in your folder, and then the phone number is actually right there too.
Okay.
So basically, send us an email or give us a phone call, and that'll get the process started for getting you connected one-on-one with the consultant. All right? Well, if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and take your surveys, and then we'll let you all go. And again, we appreciate you coming, and we'd love to be able to work with you. And thanks again to Business Radio X and great presentation you guys gave. Absolutely. And I think and Stone left some of his business cards up here if you all would like one.